Good evening, all of you. So let's get on with the topic. Cessation of hostilities is a term we used to explain to the CSOs at our last meeting in February. Before they were meeting, there was going to be a meeting between the Meitei CSOs and our CSOs. So cessation of hostilities is a term picked because ceasefire technically, supposedly, is supposed to be between two sovereign countries. And that's the criticism with respect to the government of India signing a ceasefire with the NSC and IM. In other words, by using the term ceasefire, the government of India, I don't know whether intentionally or otherwise, hard to say, uh, seems more like a slip. They use the term ceasefire and in that way legitimized or privileged the NSC and IM as being a sovereign country, which of course the NSC and IM believe they are, and that's why they're fighting for their rights. But that's okay. But that technicality was avoided in the case of the UPF and KNO agreement with the government of India and government of Manipur, because there we did not use ceasefire anymore, but we therefore came up with a term, or the government came up with a term, which we accepted, which is suspension of operations. So that seemed to work well with us for the UPF and KNO, and we have been at it since 2008 and continuing. Now, with respect to the intercommunity dialogue, one of the objectives was to bring an end to the shooting, the killing, the aggression, that was going on since 3rd of May 2023. And so rather than use suspension of operations or ceasefire, um, we thought cessation of hostilities was something that made clear the same thing. Now, we have to understand that whether it is ceasefire or cessation of hostilities or SOO, it simply means that the two adversaries do not shoot at each other. It does not mean they have arrived at peace. Hemkham is a term in our dialect which means the same as ceasefire or cessation of hostilities or SOO. You have Hemkham so that the two adversaries would not attack each other. They should keep their cool so that they can talk through the issues involved that in the first place caused the conflict. So, with the intercommunity dialogue between our CSOs and the uh, Meitei CSOs, it seemed appropriate to use the term cessation of hostilities. And for the benefit of our people who might find that term, the English term, confusing for whatever reason, we thought we would use the term Hemkham to explain. Hemkham does not mean peace. It means you stop fighting and then you start talking about ways to arriving at a peaceful solution to the conflict. So that's the whole intention behind the term Hemkham, which unfortunately was misunderstood even amongst our own CSOs. I saw one WhatsApp post which said the Meitei and Kuki problems, the conflict, should not be solved on the basis of our Kuki traditional customary practices, which was not the intention at all. They were demanding that this problem between the Meitei and Kuki should be solved according to the government of India, the country and whatever laws that prevails, which is clearly the case also. So confusion was with the terminology, and that is now hopefully something that will become clearer as we go through this XSpace discussion tonight. And of course, there are going to be a couple of meetings in the next few days on the same topic, so that at the next meeting that the MHA is going to conduct, if at all they decide to continue with the second session between the two communities, then we want our side of the community to be completely clear about the meaning of cessation of hostilities, which is the same of SOO. We have signed SOO with the government of India in 2008. Doesn't mean that we reached a solution straight after signing. The process of arriving at a solution has continued from 2008 and still continuing. Similarly, if there's an Hemkham or cessation of hostilities with the Meitei CSOs and our Kukizo CSOs, it doesn't mean that the day you sign that, you have arrived at peace. It may take a long, long time until we ever arrive at peace. And I don't want to equate that with the SO talks that has been continuing from 2008, and in 2025, we still haven't arrived at a solution, meaning we haven't arrived at a peaceful solution. In other words, no solution at all, although we signed SOO. But the meaning of SOO is not solution, but to have no violence on ground so that we will have an atmosphere that will be conducive for dialogue. And that has been going on. And therefore, I link that very uh, clearly with the whole effort of the government's or MHA's plan to uh, have a peaceful environment, meaning um, what do you call it? Meaning absence of violence, so that talks can happen. So between the Meitei and Kuki also, Kukizo, if we have Hemkham or cessation of hostilities at the aegis of the Ministry of Home Affairs, then, after signing that memorandum of understanding between the two communities, then we can start talking about the road to peace. And who can say how long that will take? The idea of, for instance, free movement in a very broad sense is stated by the Home Ministry, which is good. But what do you mean by free movement? You can categorize it under, for example, free movement of essential commodities, medicines, etc. But do you apply that to free movement of human travel? That is another part of the free movement, which has to be very carefully worked out so that we don't have any untoward incident should people start moving freely, as it were. Meaning, Meiteis from the valley would be able to move towards, for example, say Dimapur or Guwahati, for those people perhaps who cannot uh, afford to buy an air ticket to go to Guwahati or Delhi or Calcutta for medical treatment, they might be, somebody that the Kuki-Zo community, if they want to, um, uh, agree to those medical uh, if people in need of medical attention and can't afford air travel, being allowed to go by road through National Highway 2, that is Kangpokpi, it has to pass through Kangpokpi, and they should be, for example, taken in a convoy under proper protection offered by the Central Security Forces and the local police, forces, so that people don't have to be put under any kind of situation that may be, risky to their lives. But that's just a theory. Now, whether that can ever happen in the near future, who is there to predict? But if we talk about free movement, that also can only start to be a topic after we agree not to fight. So, cessation of hostilities or Hemkham, so that we can start talking about free movement, for example, and then free movement meaning for essential goods that has been happening continuously. Actually, it hasn't stopped. The only thing that stopped was, despite the blockade at Kamukpi being lifted in 2023, with the assurance that from Imphal it would reach the hills, it never reached the hills. The Meiteis in Imphal, they completely blocked anything reaching Churchandpur or More, and that includes medicine. So that's the extreme contradictions there. We left the national highway blockade at Kamwupi on humanitarian grounds because the Union Minister of Home uh, said that would be a good thing on our part, even though we are victims. But the Meiteis in Imphal, they did not reciprocate. Now today also, MHA is trying to bring about a situation where the two communities can sit at the table and agree to sign a memorandum of understanding, which is cessation of hostilities, no fighting, so that we can start talking about, things like free movement of essential goods, which is continuing anyway, and the objective, of course, is really seriously free movement of people. And at this point, I can't envisage free movement with respect to More or Churchandpur, and there's no need either in the context of what I said about the valley people who may not be able to afford flights, wanting to go by road because it's much cheaper through Kangpokpi to Dimapur and then to Guwahati, and avail of the medical facilities in Guwahati, for example. So, that being the situation, whatever direction we have to go in terms of avoiding this stalemate of hostilities, you have to cease shooting at one another. That's the first thing. And for that, if the two communities can sign an MOU, which is what the Ministry of Home Affairs wants, then there's a way forward that we can explore. If you're shooting at each other, you can't talk. And if you don't talk, you don't arrive at a solution. Everybody knows that in World War One or World War Two, any two countries engaged in extreme hostilities, sooner or later, if they want the hostilities to end, then they have to do that across the table. And you can't do that unless you agree to a ceasefire. For instance, today I'm told that around 3 o'clock, government of India and the government of Pakistan have agreed to a ceasefire. Now, ceasefire doesn't mean peace automatically. With ceasefire, they're going to be able to sit across the table and start talking and work out modalities for peace. And for the cookies, though, and the Meitei, problems, peace is not going to appear overnight. Peace has conditions. You have to have justice brought forth. You have to have reparations. You have to have a future where, for example, for the cookies local community, which I speak for, I would want conditions where we would never ever be subjected to the kind of horrors that our people face in the heart of Imphal, in the midst of the the ground condition where our settlements were so small and completely surrounded and overwhelmed by the Meitei community. I would never ever subject my people, my family, for instance, in that situation. So, how do you arrive at that without agreeing on certain principles or conditions? And you can't come up with conditions unless you talk across the table. And for that, you need Hemkham. Peace in our culture also wants to adversaries fight and to bring a solution. The chief of the village would call for Hemkham. They're obliged to agree and they don't fight each other, and then they start talking about the problems. And if they, in the conversation dialogue, agree to certain measures being equally acceptable to both sides, then you have a solution, and in the long run, you have a sense of peace. Now, that is in the context of two adversaries within a village. Now, if you're thinking of the main thing is to problem from 2023 is something completely unimaginable. It's not like a foreign country acting in another country. It is your neighbor who is come out and then slaughtered you, burned you, raped you, turned you upside down. And even when you wanted to escape, you were not permitted to. You were infected, you were thrown on that. Someone will killed. I'm sure you know one in reality. And then even there, I would just the fact that when people were being evacuated, Kukizu from the valley, and then the native population from Moray and um, Lanka, in Nepal, there were the casualties ran more than 150 in a span of 3-4 days or a week. When the native population from Chanpur and Moray were evacuated, there was not a single casualty. And credit goes to the samurais for that. And they say that sign. They think the samurais are, very people. And to the contrary, actually, at that point, there was a situation where the mob got very angry, and samurais opened fire in Lanka, and 2 women were shot dead. Have you ever heard of a samurai in Imphal bombarded by the mob or the Mera BBs and the samurai rifles shooting anybody? That's never happened. So you don't have grounds to be angry at the samurai rifle. Much against what is hurled at samurai rifles by the valley people that rifles are favoring the Kido people. There's a lot of contradictions up in there. But at the end of the day, the truth will set us free, and it is beginning to set us free. And once we have peace, and once we have Hemkham, I mean, and we have cessation of hostilities, and we start talking, and we discuss issues. Now it's going to be between the two communities represented by their respective civil societies. Then somehow, some way will be found to address problems, and peace in the sense of the status quo a couple of years ago may not happen, in my view, until maybe the next generation. Even that might be optimistic. What our people faced in Imphal, in the valley, from 3rd of May, is unimaginable. If you look at the videos today that are properly reported and kept, no one in their sane mind who is subject to that kind of atrocity and inhumanity, disgrace, would ever dream of that kind of condition ever returning. If it does, after several generations, so be it. But as of today, because we have Hemkham or cessation of hostilities and expect there'll be peace tomorrow or overnight, that is completely, a misunderstanding on the parts of those who don't understand what Hemkham means, what cessation of hostilities means. But it's very important to have this clear, especially in view of what I mentioned earlier, that if the Home Ministry is going to hold another session of inter-community meetings, then our people needs to be absolutely clear that cessation of hostilities or SOO or Hemkham does not mean peace or solution immediately. It's a condition where you don't shoot or fight against each other physically, but you sit across the table on the basis of that memorandum of understanding of an agreement not to shoot each other, which is cessation of hostilities or Hemkham or SOO, and you discuss. I don't know how long it will take. Maybe it'll take years, months. I don't know. So that you can, on the basis of that MOU, to not shoot at each other, you start exploring ways to move forward. And until you have the same harm or cessation of hostilities, you cannot move forward. You'll stagnate. And thankfully, although I don't want to make it sound light, we've had one intercommunity meeting and it was a flopped, and it was mainly because I think because it was because people were confused about what the MHA intended to do, which is bring the two communities together, sign an MOU that they will not fight against each other, and work out some practicalities on ground to normalize or to alleviate the plight of the people from both communities. So whatever we have to agree or disagree with can only happen across the table, not by shooting at each other. So first thing first is you have to agree, sign an MOU saying you will not shoot at one another. Then eventually down the road over I don't know how many years, a semblance of peace might come. So that's the essential point I wanted to elaborate on, that we must understand the meaning of ceasefire or suspension of operations or cessation of hostilities, or in our dialect, Hemkham. It does not mean peace automatically. Peace will be a long way. There'll be so many conditions that, especially from the Kuki community, in terms of a way forward and in terms of, you know, accepting free movement of people, free movement of essential commodities has been allowed by the Kukizo people for the last 2 years, which has benefited the Valley people. And what have we gained from it? What have what has the government done for our, you know, uh, how do I word it? For our turning the other cheek, if you like, of lifting the blockade on NH2, which we did and is continuing, but in Imphal it was completely blocked off. Not only that, even in education, students were not permitted to sit for their examinations in the district headquarters because they couldn't go to Imphal. And students from Manipur University, etc., were, or from Raven College in Lamka, they were all failed by the examiners. You know, the the situation is, it's bizarre even to think about it. It's like, did it really happen? Did 3rd of May really happen? And what happened subsequent days and weeks and ongoing? It's hard to imagine. And I underline the fact of that, you know, bizarre situation, because it's not a foreign country attacking you, it's your neighbors doing that to you. And in return, our people still protected those people from More or Lamka, or even in Chandel and Kangpokpi. Meiteis were safely evacuated by the army and with the support of the civilians. Like at Hengbung, there's a university, agricultural university. There are a lot of Meitei professors, students. They were escorted in buses through Kangpokpi to Imphal with the initiative and our people ensuring that they were safely evacuated. Did that happen in Imphal? No. And now we are being called the perpetrators of hostilities? No, without sincerity and honesty and truth, there will never be peace again. It is clear for us we will never go back to Imphal again. It is clear to us that we will go forward with a demand for union territory with legislature, because that's the only way we can ensure our future in terms of safety and development. And no longer will we say separate administration. We have already submitted our demand in writing on the 1st of September 2023, clearly stating we want UT modeled on Article 239A. That is it. So, all that we demand because we want peace, we want safety, security of life and property. And with respect to the Meiteis, I don't know what all they will want. It will only be clear after we sit across the table after signing the MOU. And in fact, honestly, I have my reservations. I wonder if the Meiteis would really, Meiteis meaning I don't mean all Meiteis, the radical Meiteis would ever want cessation hostilities. If the majority of the Meitei people want a Hemkham, cessation of hostilities, then there may be a way forward in terms of normalizing after conditions raised according to the circumstances and issues involved are adequately uh, taken care of. And that can only happen after we sign an MOU, and there might be, I'm sure the silent majority of the Meiteis who want peace in reality would want to discuss the conditions that we have, and they may also have conditions, and I'm sure they will. But you don't know, and you can't deal with those issues and expect to go forward and arrive at any semblance of peace without first stopping to shoot at one another, which is a cessation of hostilities or Hemkham. So let's put first things first, stop shooting at one another, sign an MOU without conditions, if you like. The only condition we could maybe, in the first instance, I'm being conservative, no doubt, maybe we should just make one agenda only, signing an MOU not to shoot at one another. And if we can add others along with at the meeting, if both sides agrees, that's a good thing. But let's begin with signing this Hemkham or cessation of hostilities the with our counterpart, the Meitei community, and that's the responsibility of the MHA. And we can only cooperate provided we are going to benefit from it, provided we're going to get something out of it. We need something, a takeaway from that meeting. We can't be subjected to the horrors that we have faced and then be condemned for trying to secure ourselves. No, that is not going to be acceptable. But whatever it may be, you have to begin somewhere. And the place to begin is cessation of hostilities or Hemkham in our dialect. And then let's see where we get. We can only start exploring after we sign the MOU and we know the minds of the Meiteis and they will know our minds also. And then we will have exchange of views and discussions and whatnot in the community level. And the community level discussions, meetings is not going to bring the ultimate solution because the technical side of it, the legal side of it, the political side of dealing with our issues is in process with the government of India and the suspension of operations groups under UPF and KNO, and that has been stalled, ironically, by the radical Meiteis in the assembly and supported by militant groups, and that is something unimaginable. How can a government be against suspension of operations which is for peace? It means the state government wants war, and that's something that the central government has to deal with. So I hope that explains clearly what I mean by cessation of hostilities, Hemkham in our dialect, and peace. They are two different things. They are not one and the same. The first has to happen so that the latter can eventually, over a period of time, after meeting and addressing all the conditions we raise, are taken care of. Thank you very much.